In this module, we look at professional development and continuing education. Continuing education is one type of professional development. Generally, someone with an academic degree could pursue higher education, or you're awarded for successful completion of formal training programs. Continuing education helps you to gain credentials, master new skills, and it improves your resume. It'll help you gain new knowledge that you can leverage salary negotiations, and you may have continuing education already required for state licensing boards. Continuing education is used to satisfy state relicensing requirements, and it's used as part of documentation of your professional competency, especially if you're looking at opening up an animal-assisted intervention or services program. Professional development and continuing education may mean different things within different professions. For the purposes of this course, professional development is a larger overall plan to add animal-assisted interventions or services to your career. Continuing education will be how you achieve it and how you can keep it current. Professional development and continuing education sources can include conferences and workshops, webinars, online tutorials, blogs, email newsletters, internships, post-professional rotations, podcasts, degrees, continuing education, certifications, or certificates. So the requirements from different organizations can just look different within or between each organization. There are state licensing guidelines. And so again, we've spoken before about alternative and complementary practices. So it may fall underneath that, or you may have professional documentation from your discipline organization. Some national organizations, such as American Counseling Association and American Occupational Therapy Association, those kinds of organizations may or may not have something for you regarding specific animal-assisted interventions or services. There are also those membership organizations. We've spoken before about Animal-Assisted Intervention International, the International Association for Human-Animal Interaction Organizations, Association of Animal-Assisted Intervention Professionals, and so on. Most professional level organizations will have some sort of continuing education or continuing competency requirements or even recommendations. So, how is animal-assisted interventions or animal-assisted services represented or described? Well, it may be animal-assisted interventions such as animal-assisted therapy and animal-assisted education. It could be animal-assisted services. So this is animal-assisted treatment, education, and animal-assisted support programs. It may look like complementary or alternative medicine or procedures, protocols, or practices. Or it can be a specialization, a special interest, or a specialty. So the areas of study for continuing education or professional development would include history, terminology, taxonomy, and definitions of animal-assisted interventions or services, ethics, standards, competencies, theory, including human-animal interactions and the human-animal bond, relation of your professional theories, models, frames of reference to your specific area. For example, if I'm thinking animal-assisted services and I want to offer animal-assisted treatment and support programs, then I need to know the theories, models, and frames of reference for both of those. Animal-assisted interventions or services also require knowledge and continuing education in session planning, in measurement, in documentation, your service delivery, and how to screen or evaluate clients for appropriateness to participate in these services. Just because somebody likes dogs does not mean that they are a good candidate to participate in animal-assisted treatment with dogs. We also want to look at ethology, which is a scientific study of animal behavior, especially under natural conditions. It's viewed as an evolutionary adaptive trait. When we think about anthrozoology, which is an interdisciplinary field of study that explores the spaces that animals occupy in human and social and cultural worlds, and the interactions between humans and non-human animals. I highly recommend the Career Paths in Human-Animal Interaction for Social and Behavioral Scientists. This covers a plethora of areas in which animal-assisted interventions or services may be appropriate. The areas of study would also include how to search for, read, understand, and apply the peer-reviewed literature outcomes. This is the who, what, where, when, and why. And learning how to differentiate causation versus correlation. We also want to determine what area or who, the population, the literature is referring to. And we want to understand methodology. Additional areas of study for you to consider as you're developing your professional development plan and continuing education would be animal health and welfare, animal relationship development and enrichment, animal behavioral norms, signs of stress, body language and communication, autonomy and consent, learning theory and training, breed-specific traits, individual animal preferences, animal screening, selection, training, and evaluation, and of course, socialization. This is to people, places, and things. And there is a very specific developmental window in which different species of animals do their social learning, but it's almost always very early in life. For example, a dog's social window typically closes by the time they're 4 months old. 4 months of paws on the ground, and they have already determined their socialization skills for people, places, and things, which can be very unfortunate because that is the exact time that they're immunocompromised. They're not fully vaccinated yet to get out in the world and safely participate and engage in activities that involve all of these things. Additional areas of study will be writing program proposals, evaluating your program, and development of your program based on those evaluation findings. Risk assessment and management plans, you'll learn a lot of that here, and that covers clients, animals, the handler, other staff, healthcare, human service providers, and it also looks at the environment. You'll be delving into that pretty soon. We want you to make sure that you understand all of the possible precautions, population risks, understanding and learning how to write an informed consent and release form, and to understand liability issues. Do you need business insurance, professional liability insurance? What does it cover? Is it going to cover a client if they get bit by your dog, whether it's provoked or not? Are they going to cover an ambulance coming to get them? Emergency services? Is it going to cover urgent care, prescriptions, follow-up appointments, et cetera, et cetera? There are also things that you'll need to look at, such as zoning laws for your specific region. There are also city or regional animal ordinances, animal transportation laws. For example, in my area, you can't have dogs riding in the back of pickup trucks. Animals keeping and licensing requirements. So how many animals can you have? Are you allowed to tie them up outside? All of just animal keeping practices. Husbandry. What are the noise ordinances? Do you have quiet times in your area? Are there, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. as anything goes? Are you in a residential area? That's a little different than working in a business district. And then we also want to make sure that you understand public health. And this is zoonotic risk factors, bite prevention, and things like that. Again, you're going to get a lot of this within this program, but that doesn't mean that it's the end. Animal assisted services and interventions require ongoing continuing education. We have a lot of science happening. We have a lot of practice happening. And that means we have a lot of experiences to learn from and to change our practices. Also looking at the difference between supervision, mentoring. How are you going to have your skills assessed or your horse's skills assessed? Do you have some hands-on components? Book learning is completely different than being a practitioner. How will you evaluate the handler or the professional if it's somebody separate, the dog specifically for their job? Remember, apples and oranges. If you are going to have an apple, you need to evaluate for an apple, not an orange. Consider whether you should handle your own dog versus calling in a team. So handling your own dog where it's you, your dog, and a client is a triangle model versus, let's say you're doing hippotherapy and it's you, your client, a horse, and a handler or a sidewalker. So you may have a diamond model where there are 4 or even 5 people. What do you look for in instruction? How do you know that continuing education is quality? Well, you can look to see if the lecturer has published works like research, books, articles. Do they have hands-on experience? And if it includes the application of the content, make sure that they have hands-on components, that the lecturer has education, experience, evaluation for species-related content. For example, a certified professional dog trainer, knowledge assessed, or AAP, which is applied animal behavior. Look at mentoring, supervision, and post-professional rotation opportunities. Also, how will you evaluate your skills in content application? Will you be getting a certificate versus a certification versus a degree? What about the animal that you work with? Some of the considerations. If you think about building a resume for your animal, we want to consider the different kinds of coursework that is going to help you to do that. And again, I'm going to use a dog as an example because it's the easiest for me. There's puppy kindergarten, socialization. The American Kennel Club has puppy training, canine good citizen, community canine, urban canine. You can do a volunteer visiting experience. And even if you are looking at working in therapy, I always recommend doing volunteer visiting first. That way you can really give your dog or horse or whoever the attention that they need without having to make it too complex. Handling equipment and your client, etc. Even things like agility, rally, freestyle, scent work, all of those things work on self-control. They work on relationship development, etc., etc. So consider coursework for you and your animal. Any of the things that we've mentioned before. Make a list of your animal's strengths and weaknesses, your animal's preferences. Who do they like? Pediatrics, seniors? What environments do they like? Busy hospital environments? Single one-on-one practice? Do they have a specific time of day that they perform better than others? We have to consider the job description versus the animal's skills and weaknesses, and the ethical treatment and quality of life for your animal when they are doing this kind of work. Here's some continuing education resources. Here are some book resources. I consider these self-study gems. And here are some that look at dog training and behavior. rabbit training and behavior, horse training and behavior, bird training and behavior. When you're looking for reputable animal continuing education content, look for the keywords of positive reinforcement, fear-free, and humane. So we're going to review an example competency document. You're going to identify your areas of strength, your areas of weakness, make a plan for continuing education so that you are strengthening your skills and decreasing liability. If you have any questions, as usual, you can get in touch with us through email. We have provided a document from Animal Assisted Intervention International competencies in its full format so that you can just look at some of the details of areas of continuing education and professional development. Again, I'm only using this organization's documents because I helped write them and I know them inside and out. Many organizations have equally fantastic documents. So make sure that you explore several before choosing the one that you're most interested in. But for this week, the Animal Assisted Intervention International competencies can be reviewed just to get your wheels turning about the areas that you have strengths and weaknesses, the areas that your animal may have strengths and weaknesses, and things like evaluating your clients, your programs, et cetera, et cetera. I hope this was beneficial for you. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.